So Mo, it looks like
And we're live, guys. We're live.
All right,
yeah.
all right.
Tell me if you guys can hear the music on the other side.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, we
We
are
hear it.
doing it. Yes.
This is a real traffic jam, right?
Yeah. So, everyone, welcome into the throne room. We are excited to be back here with you guys today as we come together to talk about the COVID experience. If
Mm,
this is the first time that you will be joining us, please know that this is a safe space that has been created for us to be able to come and have conversations about those really hard issues, the place and space that we have created for us to be able to purge from them and to be able to find healing and to be able to also have rest so
yeah.
that we can transform into that which we have been called and created to become. And you all know what that is. That is
Royalty.
royalty, royalty. Woo! My
Yes.
name is Monica Jackson. I am your host, and to this side of me, right there, she is my writer, my ace boon, Miss Jackie Oliver of For Your Mind Inc. And below me, we could never leave him out. He is the man of the hour, Mr. Ned White of Pure Care Ministries. And then this would not all happen without her. If she wasn't here, this could not be. It is the mommy, the one and only mommy, right here underneath us, Miss Debra Ivory Chandler of Royalty Ministries and all things educational and everything else. I
Yes.
am
There you go.
so happy and I am so excited to be able to be here in conversation with my family. I'm just grateful for communications and platforms like these that even in the midst of our busyness and all of the things that are going on, COVID has really opened up the doorway for us
Mm,
to be able to connect in ways that we had never imagined, thought of, or even had the courage to do. And so today I lead that in by saying COVID wasn't all bad. It didn't have all of the things that we would want, but it did give us a new way of thinking about how to be able to connect with people. And so
yes.
as we begin our show today, I'm going to actually kick things off with the normal question of y'all who's out there in the land. We want to hear from you, so please do not hesitate. Please feel free to drop in your comments, your questions, and your asks. We want to hear from you. We want to be able to give you a shout out. As a matter of fact, our first shout out goes to our brother and our friend, Calvin Thomas. Once again, thank
Man.
you for watching with
Yes.
us.
Yes. Calvin is a friend of the program because he's on
Yes,
every time we
yes.
get on.
Yes,
He's
Absolutely.
a friend of the
faithful.
program.
Yes,
Absolutely. And he's had an opportunity to be on the barbershop.
that's
Oh, yes.
right.
Yes.
That's right. Well,
Yep.
thank you, Calvin, again. Please like, share, spread the word. We are here not as experts. We might be experts in our own respective places and industries, but we are here first and foremost as people, individuals who are just trying to figure it out and do life together. And we're hoping that this becomes a platform, maybe a model for other communities to be able to have those discussions around things and topics that might be taboo,
Mm,
topics that are hard to have, and even topics that people don't really necessarily have all the particular answers for. We don't know who might be the expert for them, but we want to begin to model that. So today, as we talk about the COVID experience, that corona Jackie,
Corona.
you brought this up.
Corona.
Okay. Yeah. So let's I want to allow Jackie an opportunity to just talk about why this was so important to her, because she was very passionate about the need to have this conversation as we walked into the month of February.
One of the reasons I brought this up, we were looking at some things that had been happening in the community and how the BIPOC community had been affected by COVID. And one of the things that I have seen, not just here, but in my work and even in ministry, that there are some things that weren't being addressed. There
It's
was
okay, Mom.
some,
Go get it, boobies.
there was some topics. Everybody's talking, but nobody's talking about how we were affected or hit hard by COVID. And I felt that, you know what, it's time for us to take the covers off and to talk about what our people and people of color have been experiencing, and also what came out of COVID for us, because it wasn't all bad.
Amen.
We had some losses, but we also had some gains, and that's what needs to be talked about. Not just, we always hop on the negative side of things, but we don't come back and say, and as a result of, because there's a lot of, and as a result of COVID, things that have changed and have happened for the good for our people. But we do want to talk about the disparities in the community, the disproportionate portionality that has impacted our community prior to COVID and got even worse since COVID. So I think that is something worth taking the covers off.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So I'm gonna just get us started. And what are some of the things that we've been hearing? What are some of the things that we know to be true about the experience with COVID? I know that there has been a lot of conversation about the vaccine. I've heard a lot of people have a lot of conversations about, people not wanting to go to work because they have been getting benefits and all that good stuff. But what are some of the things that we can really begin to have the conversations about? What are some of the things that we've been seeing that might be of concern that we believe haven't necessarily been addressed to its fullness?
Well, one of the things I want to address, and that was weighing heavy on me, and everybody knows when I'm passionate about something, I will lock in like a pit bull, and I will not let it go because I'm that passionate about it until I see results. But one of the things I was sharing this morning is how society at large has forced this vaccine down our throats. And I am a person I am not vaccinated. I am not getting vaccinated. And hence have been asked why the argument for vaccination ain't enough for me. Because I believe if we build our system up, eat right, keep our houses clean and people out of our houses, we'd be okay. And I believe part of this scare tactic thing, there's also a hidden agenda. I, as a person of color, as you all can see, looked at how it rolled out in my community. I live in Newark, New Jersey, brick city, all day, every day. And when I first saw the posters up in the community offering people money to be tested and all this stuff, I started looking, listening, watching, and digging. And I said, why did they come to our community for people to be test tube monkeys and test dummies? Why did they come to the urban core? And then all of a sudden, I guess when they didn't get the response that they thought they would get, you saw the national push, government officials pushing it. They use actors and music producers and artists to push it. And it's like, okay, what's behind the vaccine? And then everybody's saying, oh, get it, it's a matter of life and death. Oh, you drink Coke, oh, you drink this. But sometimes you got to look at what the bigger picture is. And why did it start in our community first? Right? We were already the first ones with the prior health conditions. So we were the prime targets. And then on top of that, you come in with this vaccine that is not even guaranteed like the other vaccines were, or had time to be tested, or even had time to know what's in it. So some people, they succumb to the pressure. They succumb to, I have pre-existing. I had a lot of pre-existing stuff before COVID. You know what? When I lost weight, I lost a lot of the pre-existing stuff. And rather than teaching us how to live healthy and to live healthy in this climate, everything went pushing a vaccine, pushing, and our seniors were scared. Our people that had diabetes and high blood pressure was scared, which is most of our community, right? And
Right.
they rolled on the panic and the fear of the people to push an agenda that we all know the government is pushing. And
Mm.
that right there is not in our favor. Is it ever in our favor?
Hmm. Well, that's a good place to start. And if anyone knows, I always play devil's advocate. We can always have conversations. I myself have not been fully vaccinated either, and due to my own personal beliefs, I will not. More than likely be vaccinated. But there are some who have had a really treacherous experience with that, and they often wonder if they had gotten vaccinated, would they have still been here? And our listener says, my daughter is burying her mother-in-law on Friday, who succumbed to COVID on January 10th. She was not vaccinated. My condolences, first and foremost, go out to you and your family, your daughter, and her husband's family as well, as we navigate this time. So let's just be clear. Again, these are opinions of people, right?
Yes.
These are, and all of our differing opinions represent different spaces within our communities. And so we as an organization, as a network, are not taking any particular position. We are not putting out there any particular mindset, but we are hoping that this conversation opens up the doorway for the truth, right? So we're taking the covers off. And that means we need to really get inside of the ways in which people in our community are thinking, because there's a lot
Mm.
of people who are thinking the way that Jackie's feeling, right? And her thinking. There's
And as
people
you
who,
said,
mhm,
disclaimer, these are just my opinions, my feelings.
right.
Operative
Mm-hmm.
word, my. And I don't force them on anyone. And to the young lady who's burying her family member, my condolences to you and your family um, on the death of your mom. My condolences sincerely. I want people to really take time and think.
Mm,
Oftentimes, and we're the main ones that come into our community, and they start putting scare tactics out. At one time it was the lead in the water, and after the Flint thing, the lead in the water. So they used that scare tactic, and a lot of the homeowners had incurred their own debt preparing pipes from old houses that
mm,
they inherited. And there should have been some type of relief if this is such a mass thing going on, some type of help. But in our community, we didn't get the help. But in other communities, they got FEMA to help them change pipes that was inherited in houses. Why not in our community?
Mm.
Everything
mm,
affects us differently than it does the rest of the world. And that's all we
mm.
wanted to do with this conversation today: shed light, expose,
Mm.
and take the cover off of what's happening in our community since COVID.
I
Yeah,
know.
thank
Mm.
you, Jackie, for being courageous enough to have this conversation. It wasn't on my radar as something that I would particularly want to cover, but it is something that is necessary because it's happening in real time in our communities. Miss Deborah Ivory Chandler, I'm sorry, I gotta call you mommy because that's it. That's all I know.
You
So
know,
y'all gonna get mommy.
dealing with this distrust of the government and healthcare. It reminds you of the Tuskegee experiment, right?
Yes.
That's
Mm.
that thing that plays in the back of our mind as a people, and we know, like Agent Orange and all these things, what happened to us, and so it's still in our DNA, our cultural
It's
DNA.
embedded in our fiber of our being.
Yes,
Mm,
Yes.
it's come through us because we know that we are the target.
yeah.
Certain peoples are considered to be expendable, and we can be exposed to with not being looked at as the integral part of society so easily. We become disposable, put on the
Mm.
front lines in battles, and so we find
Mm,
ourselves often in those places. So that distrust carries through. And I know that as we
mm,
talk about our distrust of vaccines, of this COVID vaccine, and what our opponents would say automatically to us is to make us aware of the fact that vaccines aren't new.
right.
They're
And
not.
there's
They're
polio
not.
vaccines and all these vaccines, and we took them and gave them to our children, and became a requirement for them to enter school.
Schools.
We know what was in them.
Nope.
No.
Had no
Mm,
idea. Polio, all of these things, measles, mumps, rubella, TB, all of these things. I have
Chicken
no
pox.
idea. Yeah, yes,
mm-hmm.
chickenpox, all of them, we have no idea what's in them. But inherent in that is a people who have been exposed and been victim and succumb to discrimination. And so we hear
Mm,
these stories. And so we know cling to these conspiracy theories. Part of it is the theories that were thrown out in the beginning. I have to confess too, because I have not been vaccinated. Um,
Yeah.
I have I'm not out and about like you were saying, Jackie. I'm not for that very reason. I am very much conscious and aware of the fact that this disease is real. I don't think it's made up, but I
right.
do recognize the fact that I have to be keep my immunity built up. I have to make sure that I'm not interacting with people to a certain degree, and that can be limiting. I don't feel comfortable with the fact that I'm not. I have to put it out there like that.
Mm,
Because there are a lot of older people, different family members, and things who are having things that you can't participate in. And just think about the discrimination now that has come. You're not able to
mm-hmm.
go to the restaurants. You're not able to interact and
Uh-huh.
engage. And so, if
Flying, traveling.
you have to be a very courageous person at this point to not succumb to the messaging. And I do understand that we're trying to combat this thing, but when we're looking at it and we see that even with the three being all boosted up, because now they've changed it, because we know
Now
that
it's another one.
oh,
Another.
now
You got to go
person just
forward.
on two, and now you got to get every 6 months of that. But it's not that it's outside of the norm, and I see that, but I'm not comfortable with the extent of the rollout and the fact that it is not a guarantee that I won't get it.
Right,
Not a guarantee that I won't if I had it, that if I wouldn't, and I came down contracted it, that I wouldn't have to be hospitalized. It's not a
right.
guarantee that I won't get it and die. It's
Pass
not
it
a
on.
guarantee. It's nothing, and it is not
Nothing's
a
guaranteed.
guarantee against anything. And so if you take it, you're still at risk. It says we
Well, it's
diminish
a
the risk. It says that.
right,
But I think it's an effort to try to curb it rather than not do nothing.
right.
Mm.
We do something, but we have to be aware that there's an economic piece attached to this.
There you go. There
Mhm.
you
Yes,
go.
of course, Moderna and Pfizer and Johnson and Johnson. Yes, they want you everybody to get vaccinated. Yes, they're going to encourage boosters. Yes, they're going to say get more and more boosters. Of course, because this is prime time, money being poured out. I do have had home COVID
Mhm.
tests, so don't get me.
Mhm.
I'm not against everything.
Yes.
Yes.
I'm going to test myself and make sure I'm not, and I'm going to be cautious that I'm not exposing you. I'm going to have my mask and be double masked because I am
Mm,
conscious and I'm not selfish. And I don't want to, if something's happening, I don't want to infect anybody else and I don't want to be infected. So it works both
Mm.
ways. So I have to move in wisdom. But I do know that there is the movement, and I understand the logic on both sides because everybody isn't as cautious. And I do understand too why they would even come into our communities, Jackie. I understand that because some people are just careless. Like you're saying,
right.
you're cautious and taking the necessary
Mhm.
precautions.
Not
You're
Everybody's
everybody's
not.
there.
throwing yourself out there. Everybody's not doing that. And
Mhm.
that's
Right.
why people are having to get vaccinated because people are, and people are being diagnosed with it and going to work and exposing other people. No mask,
Going
no.
to the mall. They go. They take the test. They get the result. Oh wait, let me run to the mall right quick. No, you're exposing everybody. That's careless. That's reckless.
And that's the clarification that I want to give here. To just because a person did not get a vaccine does not
Don't.
mean that they're going about not being their brother's keeper and behaving
Mhm.
carelessly, endangering and putting everybody else at risk. Because remember what the mask is for. The mask is not for other people,
It's for
for
you.
say.
Yourself.
It's for
It's
you.
so that you don't, well, it is because in the sense that you
It's
keep
both.
your germs to
To yourself.
yourself.
You know what I'm saying?
Right. So this is a good also opportunity, I believe, for us to introduce the fact that and everybody doesn't believe that prayer is the only thing that's going to keep us either getting it or that when we do get it that we will be healed miraculously and that we don't need medication. I know that there has been a lot of conversation within the faith communities about, if you believe, do you have faith? And if you want God to heal you, you got to believe,
You can pray it away.
Yeah, you could pray COVID away. I do want to bring that to the forefront of the conversations because that is also real. Because we have pastors who have been preaching a word of faith. How are you going to allow God to stop you, COVID to stop you from coming into the house of God when God has the ability to stop COVID? And I think that that is something that we should not do. But that we should be making people again aware of the fact that if we make a decision to go into the house of worship, that we should be mindful and that we should always be loving our brother as we would
Responsibility.
love ourselves, right? Which means I'm going to care for myself and I'm going to care for them because there are possibilities for things to happen.
And you got to look at what's driving houses of worship. And I as a fifth generation's preacher's kid, I fully understand. A lot of those offerings were cut because people were home and weren't sending offerings in. So you know, the church world gonna get mad. They needed to pay their bills. Okay, and
Right.
a lot of churches
Economics
were
plays a big part.
reckless. They did not use precautions. I believe they should take the same precautions that the business world take. Get your facilities sanitized before and after. Make sure there's social distance. Because you know what? If you're my leader and you're trying to build me up spiritually, first, and it says it in scripture, first it's natural. You gotta deal with my natural needs first. And the first and foremost is not your bills or the ministry's bills, is hey, what are we dealing with? We're dealing with a pandemic. And it's not about coming back together in a building, but first make sure I'm safe. How about y'all
Right.
go take this time to check in on those that you haven't seen? You know, start picking up the phone, using the precautions because you can't pass COVID through the phone, right? Skype, Zoom, you got all of these platforms. And this is one thing, the benefit of COVID, it has enlarged technology.
Yeah.
Technology
Enlarged
and
territory. Right.
technology companies
Absolutely.
benefited. Stocks have gone up and tripled, quadrupled. And one thing we can say is we're closer to being in the Jetsons now than we were before.
That is hilarious. Well, I just gonna interject right here. If you are visiting with us for the first time, we want to welcome you into the throne room. We want you to know that we want to hear from you. So please drop a comment, drop a question, drop an ask. We want to give you a shout out. Let us know that you are here with us. We see you watching, and we're grateful for you and your ability to want to come in and listen. So I'm going back to the same question. Brother Ned, pick up on the topic. Where we at? What you feeling? What you
So,
thinking?
so let me start off by saying I was having my Sesame Street moment when we were like, which one of these things does not belong to the others? I'm that thing. So I'm the person in this group that has been vaccinated, right?
Good.
I made the decision to do it. And so I'll say that first and foremost, that my decision to do it stemmed from the fact that I operate 90% of my time is as a caregiver, right? And so I'm constantly in contact with other folks. And so for me, it was a matter of I needed to take whatever extra precaution
For them.
to not only take care of me, but those folks who I were constantly coming in contact with, my mother, my auntie, and the folks in the community at senior centers. I didn't want to be the cause one way or the other.
Right.
And for me, the flip of the coin, and I'll be sincere, it was more of a flip of a coin moment, came from understanding that I've been vaccinated more times in my lifetime without knowing what was in the needle.
That's right.
Right.
Than any other. So, my role of the dice was done with a prayer.
Right.
God covered me.
Either way,
even in
it's
midst
the
of this.
risk, right?
Right. There's a risk.
Move.
So it was a faith move.
That's
So
right.
I made the decision to say, you know what? I'm going to trust God to cover me either way. But for the sake of being able to continue to be the caregiver that I was built to be, I had to take that precaution in order to get into the venues and the places that God put me prior to COVID so I can continue to do the work. So put that on the table. But then to speak to the topic or the subject moment, I agree. I think that economics drives everything that we do in this country. We are a capitalist country. We are our government, our folks of the haves and the have-nots have always been the driving force of America. And this is no different than any war we've ever been in, than any other plague we've dealt with in this world. There's always going to be a population that's going to see a economic opportunity and run with it to the fullest.
Right.
And unfortunately, 90% of those times they're hitting our community because we're probably one of the more superstitious populations on the planet. We operate in a place of fear more than anything most of the times. Even those of us who are followers of Christ still walk around and be like, oh my God, oh my God. So, yeah, of course, they're going to target us. They're going to bring it to our table. They're going to try to find any way to get us to move in the direction that they desire to benefit their pocket. But, you know, when we talk about the faith-driven community, I think that you're absolutely right. I think, you know, Mom was saying there has to be some practicality to the movement, and not let what drives the population of our churches be the dollar. It's got to be about what's best for the population. And I know from my church, the majority of the folks who are members of my church are seniors. They're always struggling with health issues anyway, as Jackie was mentioning. They probably have more conditions than anybody on the planet. And so do you, for the sake of a dollar or for the sake of just standing on this principle of, hey, we're going to be open no matter what because we trust God. Well, God also gave you common sense. He also gave you a sense of discernment. He also gave you some wisdom to know, hey, just because I got you covered don't mean you can go jump off the cliff.
Right. That's good.
That's just,
I just want.
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
Yeah, I just want to make a mention here that I believe that this makes way and room for opportunity to do church different, right?
Absolutely.
And for us to see church differently. And that as we come together as a community of people thinking that we need to be in a house of worship in order to worship and fellowship together, what does it look like to stretch ourselves beyond our current understanding to have church on the outside, right? I just think about what we see biblically in Jesus, right? He was wandering. He was out in the open field.
It says as he went.
As he went. That's right.
So it's important to have the small groups and to create intimacy so that people really get a chance to connect with and fellowship with individuals. And I think that this gave us an opportunity to do that. With that being said, I want to
stay right there for a second. Stay right there for a second. Because one thing that I saw the benefit of COVID, right? Go back to January 2020 to March 2020. We were moving so fast. Life was going so fast. We didn't have time for each other. But as soon as March, April came and everything shut down,
slowed it up.
Showed us how much time we didn't have for each other that we did have. We just chose to do something else with it, right? So it made us look at our time. You know, right? I used to say this, teach me to number my days. During COVID, one thing I did learn was how not to waste time, how not to waste energy, and how not to waste resources. Because we couldn't find tissue, we couldn't find detergent. We couldn't find
resources became very hot commodities.
Yes. So you had to learn self-preservation. It took us back to some lessons that we should have learned that we forgot about. It took us back to a mindset of, hey, am I my brother's keeper? Everybody that knows me know if I miss you, I'm going to call you, I'm going to pop up. Since we couldn't pop up, I text, yo, this is my Zoom. 5 o'clock, we on. It wasn't a question, are you available? 5 o'clock, we on. Because I need to see you. I need to lay eyes on you. And this made us creative in our ways of being relational, being communal, because we no longer go sit in each other's houses. We had to be creative on how we reached out to each other. And if it was bad news, we had to learn. We had to retrain our brains. We weren't able to mourn together. We weren't able to celebrate together. We had to retrain ourselves on a lot of things that we undid. And one thing I did learn, it's not about a building, because relationships are not buildings.
They're not.
We may meet in the building, but the relationship is woman to woman, man to man. That's where our priority and our focus should have been, instead of, oh, I got to go here. And we were going and going and going and going and going. And then the whole world pump brakes at the same time. And we felt the effect of it. Like, wow, I was doing that much moving. And accomplishing anything.
Yeah,
Right.
that's good. Ned, go ahead. Go ahead,
Yeah, I
Ned.
just wanted to bounce off of one thing that Jackie said. One of the things that, again, I wholeheartedly agree with you that COVID taught us a lot of stuff, or had us reevaluate a lot of parts of our lives, right? And one of the things that I think that we were absolutely horrible at prior to COVID was real relationship building. We were ships in the night. We would see each other. Hey, I got a meeting. We're going to run and do this. And then I'm running to this spot. And so we really never took a moment to talk to each other and find out about stuff with each other. And even for, like, I laugh. So we were, even for our group here, right? We were on, Jackie, for almost a year.
Yes.
And it took that long to find out Jackie and I both like the 49ers. Like, that just, like, we've been dialoguing, and there's no talking happening with people anymore, right?
My husband too.
All right, but we don't
let her have to pull out the hoodie. We don't want to have to pull out our
don't pull
right?
out.
Oh, Lord.
Bobby. But the reality of it is we were losing sight of how to build relationships again. And we were just becoming these people who were functioning and doing and running, and we were like so busy, but we weren't even getting time to know the people we were busy with.
Yeah.
And that was happening in church. It was happening in our workplaces. It's even happening in our homes.
Yes.
You know, the concept of sitting down and having a meal with family is almost non-existent pre-COVID. Now, like, I even laugh. I sat down Sunday and had dinner with my mom and my brother at the dining room table in our house.
You took the stuff off of it? Because you know what the dining room table be, okay? Just want to say.
Had to clean everything off. You know how we do. But it was still like the whole concept of sitting together and talking while we broke bread had disappeared from our families. And now, because of COVID, a lot of that's starting to happen. You're seeing people cooking at home more and spending time together more. And that's important. And I think that's a piece of this that we should hold on to as we continue to move through this and redevelop how we're going to live going forward.
That's good. Go ahead, Mom. Go ahead.
I guess it's kind of changing our direction because I was thinking about when Ned was talking about one of the reasons he got vaccinated. And Jackie, I think you were talking about the federal mandates for vaccination. And made me think about the disparity as far as minority populations in those groups who were forced to continue to work. They didn't have the privilege and the luxury to say, I'm going to be in the house.
Right.
Because they were considered essential workers. And as essential workers, they were exposed more than others would have been exposed. They did not have that luxury. So vaccinations and things, either they had to make choices. Think of that. Even now, you have a choice to either continue your employment, being a certain worker, or have nothing. And so you don't have that choice. We can say, oh, like I said, I'm tired, I'm home. I can say I'm not. But if I were a teacher teaching back in the school setting, it would have been very difficult for me to make that decision, especially when I was interacting with people from different children who originally weren't supposed to be exposed. They were supposed to be exempt from contracting this thing originally. But then we saw as time went on, oh, this is a variant but again, think about classrooms where because of school funding, you could be a teacher with 30 plus students in your room filling to the brim, and you the teacher and trying to maintain social distancing. Especially if you were a teacher of special ed students and they're the different issues that they have, all of those different issues. And so you could have said, I don't want to, but you're putting your life in your hand not to, because you were putting your life in your hand before that, because you have these different shots. I think it was a hepatitis C, different things that you had to have these shots, that you had to get these shots because you were already being exposed. And so now you got a situation that you forced into because you didn't have the luxury of having this office job that was all far off, privileged to work from home. You had to go out every day to have the groceries, so the groceries could be there, so people could come in the store and buy too much toilet paper. Hoarders becoming
You're
hoarders,
right.
stuff they didn't need. I mean,
Right.
you didn't have the luxury. The bus got to run, because if the bus doesn't run, if you're in our communities, how you gonna get back and forth to work? And so
Right.
we found ourselves in all of these positions, and then they said, well, they do it quitting their jobs because they wanted the COVID money. Extra money for unemployment, so that's why we have a shortage of workers, and why you can't get workers, the contractors, and this worker and that worker. But can we imagine what it's like to have been those individuals when the scare was going around about it's airborne, it's not airborne, and you're having everybody else can lock down in the house? They're saying lockdown, but you got to get out there.
Yeah, so I'm gonna give a shout out to a very special person. She's my first love, my baby. My daughter actually says I was able to stop and stabilize myself during this time and focus on me and my dreams. And what I want to say about that, that this kind of touches on everything. Her experience touches on a lot of the things that we are talking about today, and the fact that she does have a serious medical ailment, that if she was to come into contact with COVID, and me as her caretaker and parent found myself struggling trying to figure out what to do, because I wanted to keep her safe. I'm like, you're not going nowhere, you're not going to do anything. But she's a kid, she's a teenager, she's a young adult, and she's like, I want to go talk to my friends, I want to see people, and I want to work, I want to do things. And I'm like, well, no, let's do this online. But then that brought me to another point of view and perspective of this, is that our children were impacted in such it was so traumatic for them. So my children went from being able to be with their friends, going all over the place, doing all kinds of things, and traveling, because that's what we did. We traveled a lot, to now having to be in the house stuck. And guess what? It's a lot of them. It's a lot of them. And they're teenagers, and all we got is testosterone flying. We got attitudes of girls, it's everything that's happening. And so as we trying to deal with the adolescent stage and all of the things that are going on, oftentimes as parents, in our thoughts that we're protecting our kids, we oftentimes forget that they are going through some other stuff. Like this really meant
they have real life stuff going on too. Yes.
So Jackie, that this is our area as we talk about family support, education, and things like that.
Can I just throw something out there too? Because it was not just
think
about the young children who were supposed to go to school for the first time.
Yes.
And they had to go with masks, and they had to go on. It was already a scary experience. And now how many years has it been? That's when you got the educational debate going on. Should schools be open? Should they be closed? Should they be open? Should they be closed? And then our parents, who were given these online assignments. And we had to become our children's teacher. A lot of us had issues ourselves, that we're going to try to teach our children stuff that we really couldn't deal with and handle ourselves. But we had to become their teachers in the home. But we had to go out to work too. Some of us couldn't have the luxury of staying home. School was closed. And so what was really going on? And we say our children lost years of learning. Because this was really the layer.
It was a traumatic experience.
Very traumatic.
One of the things we looked at when we here in New Jersey was looking at adding COVID to the ACEs, because everybody was traumatized by COVID.
Yeah.
So when you look at the experiences that traumatize you, look at that 5-year-old brain that we're trying to launch out into the world.
Tell them what ACEs is.
ACEs is adverse childhood experiences, the traumatization that you experience as a child that shapes your brain patterns and ways of thinking and ways of doing and being, and often causes us to go into isolation. COVID did that by itself.
By
itself. It traumatized us and it put us in isolation. And the effects of COVID is going to be felt for years to come. And this is why I said we need to have this conversation. The children that we work with, like a lot of the parents were crying and playing, I'm missing work. And I listened because, hey, that's my job. But I had to tell them, think about that social butterfly that you had, that all of a sudden went from soaring free to now being contained and told you can't go anywhere.
Yep.
And on top of that, got to stay in a house with people they really don't like.
That's right.
So you gotta look at the child from the
Domestic
child's
violence
perspective.
Because they
increase.
didn't have to afford
Yes,
childcare.
they didn't have the freedom to
Couldn't
come and
afford
go.
that.
They needed people need socialization. We
Absolutely.
cannot
Mhm.
thrive without socialization. We went from being free as a bird to being told when to come and go, being told
Mhm.
to cover our faces, being told now we got to take a shot to go. And if you don't take the shot, you can't really enjoy life. So the effects of COVID, we're going to hear and feel in our
Yeah.
kids. Like, how do
Yeah.
we take our kids out of an environment where they have socialization? Yeah, they don't like school, but they like that part of school and they did it because of. And then you had some kids that really liked school, that really liked education, that got home, that can't learn on a computer, that can't,
Right.
if they couldn't understand the teacher in the classroom because of an accent, they're
Mhm.
home with a bunch of distractions, trying to
Yep.
hear
Mhm.
it through an accent, and their patience is like, I really don't want to do this. So
Right.
we
I don't
had
Mhm.
to
want
look
to
at,
do it.
yeah, parents complaining, well, my kid don't want to go to school anymore. And I was glad that in the state of New Jersey, they said, you know what, we can't hold this year against them. It wasn't
Right.
their
Mhm.
fault.
Yeah.
Yep.
Mhm.
But
That's
they
good.
made sure they got them back in so they could get the testing, so they could get them dollars to come
You gotta
back
get that
in.
money though.
You so crazy.
Economics has always
But
evolved. Capitalism lives here.
Yes,
Even in
But
yes.
the
education.
the sadness of it is without those dollars, then there couldn't be the school wouldn't be able to operate. And so the
right.
system that has been put in place, there were a lot of educational professionals who were not wanting to go back. They
And
didn't
they
want to stay
didn't.
home either.
Yes.
Right.
And so, how do we learn to navigate this environment when we're being you go in one day,
Hmm.
and next thing you know, 2 weeks off because this school closed, the other one in the district is open, and then you can't come, and this one, whatever, this one's supposed, and we had this
Yep.
one had a the test, the shot, and didn't, so you can go in every
Yep.
morning. You got to go get the test, and then you no, where are the substitutes? Because the school is open. See
Mhm.
that's a fine line because if it's at home learning, well, at least you know the teacher's going to be there. You got some issues, but there's going to be somebody there. What happens when the teacher says, "I'm not showing up. I contracted COVID. I can't come in." And
Mhm.
then where
Mhm.
are the substitutes? Because now you don't have anybody. What person in their right mind wants to sign up to be a substitute
Right.
Right.
to go in?
Right.
Right.
Not at this day and age. You're not doing
No.
it.
Definitely
So
not
now
now.
you don't
Not
have.
now. No.
Now the people who are going in have to now be exposed to even more children. And so where's the real learning
Mhm.
that's going to go on? I know there's
Right.
socialization piece, but and as a former educator, and I shouldn't say former,
You always.
I was about to
what
say
can you
you
teach?
still
Because
doing
you
it.
Yeah.
combine
Always an
classes
educator.
here.
Right.
You can't teach there's no way that you can effectively teach all of these children. So now you've gotten
Right.
a baby become a babysitter. And it's just the holding
Mm.
tank for those hours. And again, the problem is being exacerbated. So it's like it's COVID has made us not just rethink church,
You think
Mhm.
life.
Right.
rethink life,
Right.
Yes.
That's
rethink
good.
the educational system.
Uh-huh.
Maybe we
Mhm.
shouldn't be going every day. I mean, they chart that out
Dismantling.
sometimes. Maybe we should
Institution.
have smaller
Mhm.
environments. You only go a couple days a week, and
Mm-hmm.
then maybe flip classrooms.
Mhm.
Uh-huh.
Yep.
Technology
This
being
is a
what it was.
This is
Yes.
a good segue to what and actually my daughter has so much wisdom, and I don't think that she knows it, that she has so much to offer the world and her experience. I can't wait for God to give her that courage to step out into the space to actually speak. She said that COVID mentally destroyed me and built me at the same time. Um,
Mm.
Good. I like
there's
that.
something that is
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
important in there because that doesn't happen for everyone, and I have to be very transparent in this
Ooh.
conversation. That only happened like that for her because there's an intentional part of my parenting that says my children need to have community, and I intentionally forged a community of people for my children that I might not necessarily connect with all the time, but that are specifically for them to be able to say, well, I got so and so, I got Mrs. So and so over here, I got Mr. So and so over here, to
Mhm.
be able to help catch them when they fall. Right. And because I realized and recognized I can't do this thing by myself. And so I said that to you because I think that that is not just the dismantling of the system that needs to take place, but the dismantling of a system and a mindset that says that we got to do this by ourselves, that it's all about me and I came up by myself, right? Like, no, I didn't come up by myself and I can't come up by myself. How do we begin to
Weren't built
trust
that way.
communities, right? How do we begin to trust a community of people that they are going to love us in a way that's going to help us flourish at our worst and not utilize our worst against us, right? Not utilize the things that we struggle with as an opportunity for them to say, ooh, I saw you do this, the judgment to put me down. But how can I? She said, I needed help to get out and moving because I know that I would be stuck in a place of not doing anything and not being motivated. Those things cannot happen unless we begin to train up our children. And I know you hate that word, Jackie, but there's a meaning behind that, okay? As we begin to model community and fellowship, why is it so important to do the journey together? I'm thinking about Ned. It's bringing me back to what I said to you last night about when we were talking about something and Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, right? When they're in the fire, when they were going through something, I can only imagine the fact that if I was in the pit by myself, the faith that would have needed to have been there to know that God was
Would have
going to bring me
diminished and
out.
wouldn't have been as strong.
I needed my boy to be like, yo, bruh, it's going to be all right.
We got
gonna
this.
get this. God got us. You know what I'm saying? Like,
That
we
encouragement.
need that. This is why community and fellowship is important. And it doesn't have to come from people we know.
No, it doesn't. It doesn't. One thing that people need to understand in creation is God said, you know what? Man should not be alone.
It's not good.
It's not good for man to be alone, right?
That's right.
Everything was good. Everything is good, but that's not good.
That's not good.
It's not good.
And the garden was great.
Everything was good. He said it was good. Light in the day,
yes,
it's good.
He said it was good.
Yeah.
He even looked at man and said, he's good. In my opinion. But he's by himself. And this is where when you fall, it's not good to be by. And we learned this, and one thing we reinstituted in my family. Sunday, I don't care what they say, we're gonna come together. We're gonna take the risk. Because you know what? What's the difference in coming together for a Sunday meal and then coming together for only 10 people could have came, right? So what's wrong with 4 of us being in the house or 5 of us in the house? And this was an opportunity for us to pull back. And like you said, when you're alone in isolation, your mind play tricks on you. You fighting your mind, you fighting your environment, you're fighting what you think is happening. But when you got somebody there that sees it different, they can pull you out of that and bounce you back into, hey, don't stay there. We coming out of this. We ain't don't get stuck here. And that's why community is important, because when you fall by yourself, you can't pick yourself up. But if you with somebody, they can either keep you from falling, or they either help get you up or get down there with you until you're ready to get up.
Until you're ready to get up.
I want to add a little notation, an asterisk mark, that we are all people. And so we think that relationships should have this perfect tonality and like this steady beat. But because we're all people, we fail each other at times. And our level of offense that we take to things that people do. Now, I'm not saying that people don't offend us and it's not right and just, right? But what I'm saying at this point in the game is that we have to recognize that because someone does something we don't like or might even harm us in a way that we're not necessarily wanting to have them do so toward us, doesn't mean that they're not a part of our community, right? Like, doesn't mean that they shouldn't be a part of our community.
Because they are part of your growth.
Right. Yes. And you are part of theirs. My mom has this thing about reciprocal relationships. We teach about what it means to have reciprocal relationships.
That's right.
I come to you, you come to me. What you have for me, you thinking that you coming to show me something, but even in you showing me something, I'm learning
You're going to
too.
walk
I'm
away
going
with
to get
something.
something. Yes, so we have to learn how to be in community again. We have to learn how to be in fellowship again.
Again.
Yes. Yes.
With
Again,
these
yeah.
new set of guidelines, because we know the 6 feet ain't gonna change. And my personal belief, I'm a person that I need my space. Don't be too close up on me. And this was pre-COVID.
Yeah.
You too close. If I can feel you breathing, you too
You're
close.
too close.
But you know
Yeah.
what? Sometimes this has taught people that had no boundaries how to get boundaries.
Absolutely.
That's good.
Absolutely.
I just want to say something, because that dismantling, I don't know. I just guess just deal with that word, because is it that we want to dismantle something?
You know my opinion about that.
Yes. So it's like, I don't, maybe.
But there are other opinions.
There needs to be some reconciliation that needs to be done, because
Yes.
I firmly believe that there's a balance, and maybe we need to look at some things and take a real serious look at this thing, rethinking it. Maybe because we don't necessarily need to tear the whole thing down. It's like throwing out the baby with the bathwater.
We can't tear it all down. So we only are left to reconcile. And so that's the only reason why we have to come to a conversation of saying, well, how can we move forward and reconcile and reconciliate? How can reconciliation take place? Because dismantling is not going to happen, because it's rooted in us. All I think about is
like the
blood from the trees, right?
It's like our past.
It is our past.
We say, I'm going to undo it. You can't undo it.
Nope.
You can just start and go forward.
You have to reconcile it and put it in its correct, put the pieces in their correct and proper places.
That's right.
You about to make me go back to last week's conversation.
Can stand, get the lesson that's needed from it, and move forward in the direction we need to go. And so when we look at this COVID thing, and we look at the disparities, I think about when we are already a distressed people, then the pressure and burden of the additional stress of the fear of COVID and contracting it, and knowing that you didn't have the money to get to the doctors like somebody else would have had to, because if one person got COVID, they would have been hospitalized and got a whole nother level of treatment.
Yes.
But would the respirator be for me? Because my insurance may not be intact. So you may get a respirator because you got the insurance coverage and the money, but I don't have it, because even if I wouldn't got it, it's pre-existing now. Oh my gosh. And so what am I going to do? And so
that's key. That's key.
Yeah.
That's key. Because if you go back a year ago this time, right? Remember, maybe 2 years ago this time, they were running out of respirators. So how did they choose who to give them to? Yes, how did they choose who to give them to? They looked at insurance cards, age? Like, come on, what factors or determining factors did they use?
And think about the stress we were feeling because of that. And then
and then you can't go to the hospital to fight for your loved ones, because nobody's allowed in the hospital but the patient themselves. And you know how we're
doing in there.
Yes, one person gets sick, the whole family up there.
Or whether not doing in there.
Yes.
Because they got to keep the expense down, and too many people are coming. Which is why now we know we have to speak up for our loved ones. Think about the death when we got the loss, experienced the losses, our community, and we already didn't have funding, and then you got multiple people in your family dying.
Yeah.
We talked about
impact right there.
How many GoFundMes can you do?
I think we need a part 2 of this, y'all. I don't know. We might have to change up our calendar.
But to Miss Booby's point, right? And I said this all the time. My grandmother pulled me aside at 17 years old and told me, get some insurance on your mother and keep some insurance on your mother. You're going to have to bury your mother. And that put fear into me at 17. I've insured my mother since I was 17. So when I saw all these people dying, the first thing I said was, how many in our community got the speech about insurance? One, dropped the insurance because they had to choose what they were going to pay, right?
Yes, because it's too high.
It's too high. It's too high. And then on top of that, when you look at the insurance, I'm talking to somebody and they're like, if you got insurance and you die, you took that vaccine, insurance ain't going to pay you out. I said, what you talking about?
That's exactly right, because they don't cover that.
There's an indemnity.
So how many people went and got insurance and got vaccinated,
thinking you're gonna.
thinking you're going to be covered, and don't know
You're not.
the ins and outs about insurance, vaccination, and COVID.
Yep.
Like, we got
Well,
to educate.
that's a good next topic: insurance,
Yeah.
vaccination, and COVID. Maybe we need to
We
bring
need to
that to the
follow up on
forefront.
that.
We can
Yep.
make it happen. We are at time, y'all. I just want to say we thank you. But we do have a special,
I thank you, host, for obliging me in this conversation, and I thank our team for
much
obliging me in
needed.
the conversation.
Yes.
Because there's a lot of people who want to have this conversation, but don't know where to go because nobody's having this conversation.
Right. Right.
Well, we're gonna have it right here in the throne room, and we're gonna take the covers off on it, and we're not gonna. If y'all haven't noticed, we don't spare nothing. We gonna speak
Right.
what we feel. Okay. So I am glad to and honored to be able to be in relationship with you guys. But there's something that I want to do. There's something big that's happening right here for Royalty Mission Network, and I've been holding on to this thing because I
Well,
have to be
share.
honest. I've been
Yes, yeah.
scared. I've been scared, y'all. But
Get
God is
out your fear.
always
Don't go
doing stuff.
alone.
Right. I'm not going through this alone, and I drive
Hold
my
on.
people
Didn't
crazy.
she do a show said, get out your feelings?
Get out your
Right?
fear.
I'm gonna get out my feelings at this moment, and I'm gonna share the fact that and I guess we should have a drum roll in this, that we have an opportunity of a lifetime to be able to, and I don't know if y'all can see it. Can we bring it up that bigger? But Royalty Mission Network has been given the opportunity to be able to basically host a show on the Win Win Women's TV. And we will be doing that show every Thursday afternoon at 6 p.m. Eastern Time, 3 p.m. Pacific. And I am just really excited. I just want to say this could not happen without any of our listeners, without any of the people who come in and really ask those questions and challenge us to think outside of the box, and then support us to really take things to the next level. So I just want to say thank you. I just like I'm like, I can't believe this is all happening, y'all. But it's a beautiful thing, and I
So
just
stay
ask
tuned.
that, yeah, that y'all join me. You'll be able to get links and stuff. So we will be streaming on Roku, Netflix, like it's all, I don't know, all the platforms. The information will be coming out shortly from the Win Win Women TV network. So we're excited about where God is going to take us. And
Absolutely.
again, we can't be who we are, and I have to say, although we don't like to say we are catering to any specific type of platform, we're not going to
Yes,
proclaim
that's
we are a
who we are.
Christian, but this is who we are, and things don't happen for me in my eyes, for us and the people who I love in my eyes, without God. And
Amen.
so that is how this was birthed. And so I just give praise and honor. I'm trying to hold back the tears because you have no idea that when this small thought came to my mind and to my spirit, and when I picked up the phone and I talked to Ned and I talked to Jackie about it, I never would have imagined that there were people on the other side of this that would be watching and saying, we love what you want to do. We see you, and give an opportunity to the network as one as this one. So we give thanks. I'm grateful. So I'll see you again next week at 5 p.m. right here in the throne room. We're not going to stop what we do in the throne room. That it
Amen.
doesn't end, but we have another opportunity to connect right there about passion and purpose, specifically for women. But y'all know my men, my brothers. I got 4 boys, so I don't lead them out at all. So please join us right on Women's Win Network every Thursday at 6 p.m. Eastern Time, 3 p.m. Pacific, as we talk about Aspire to Higher, where we journey together. Thank you guys for joining us. Do you guys all have one thing that you want to leave? We jumped in. Do you have one thing that you want to leave the people before we end out today?
I do. Stay with us. Join us at the throne room. You don't need a vaccination for that.
You crazy. I love it. Ned, you got anything for the people? I know. Yes,
after that was really
that was it. Y'all, I got it. Well, we love y'all.
love you.
And we'll see you next week right here in the throne room at 5 p.m. Have a great night, guys.
Can we go out on some music? Like we came in on some music? Like, yeah.
Girl, like I'm just like I'm everywhere right
Like,
now. I gotta be able to do it.
When you have good
Mackie
news,
is
you
in
have
rare
music,
form
yeah,
tonight.
Yes.
She's like,
Celebrate good times. Come on.
Jackie, you on vacation or something?
I'm on vacation. Yes, I am.
That's where all that's coming from.
Yes. This is vacation number 3 since January 1st, right?
Uh-oh.
Get it? Yes.
Benefit of COVID.
Yes.
Higher.
Join us in the throne room. Bye, guys.
That's the fastest.